Time now for the RV Podcast Interview of the Week. Interesting, entertaining, and helpful information about the RV lifestyle. Here's Mike with this week's interview.
We love boondocking in places like this, and so do a lot of other people.
They sure do. I think it's the most popular place to go these days.
Now, with that, though, has come some problems. And in our interview of the week, we are going to talk to some folks from Escapers, the RV community that's out there by and for RVers. And we're going to learn about some new rules for boondocking, some voluntary rules that all of us who camp off the grid like this need to follow so these places aren't taken away from us. Well, Corinza and Brandon, thank you guys for coming on the program and helping us talk about this boondocking, I want to say craze, because it really has, when we first started, nobody knew what boondocking was, and now that's what everybody wants to do. But with that has come some responsibilities that RVers just need to visit, I think. And I want to applaud the escapers and the escapees for really leading the way on this. Why don't you guys tell us about that and how it all came about?
Absolutely. You're right. It's gotten bigger over time, and it's something that we felt as a club, that escapees felt it needed to be addressed to make sure that we are all participating in the right way and making sure that we're preserving this opportunity for future generations.
And helping to educate people in a positive way. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of success with our overnight parking policy that was put out years ago.
It's called the Good Neighbor Policy.
Yeah, to help people with, how to be when you're parking at Walmarts or whatever overnight. But now...
Let's actually talk about that for a minute. We had actually Travis from Escapers on the program, and we talked about that a couple of years ago, but so many new RVers are out there might not be aware of that Good Neighbor Policy, and what it has to do is overnighting at places like Walmart or any of the other big box stores. Touch on that, and then we'll lead right into how that applies to boondockers as well.
That's great.
Yeah, so the overnight policy is really designed so that we don't overstay our welcome. A lot of these businesses are super generous. They allow us to park overnight, but we don't want to abuse that privilege and have it taken away. So the policy is, the basic general points of the policy are: always ask for permission if you want to stay overnight in a parking lot. Make sure you're talking to someone who actually has the power to make that decision. And when you're there, don't look like you're camping.
You don't want to put out chairs or pull out your grill, because it really is an overnight stay.
Now, one question people have is, what about slides? Because sometimes you do have to have the slide to be able to use the bed or to get around.
Right, because you never know how the RV is built, and you might not be able to get to that. So it's one of those that is a touch point, and we don't address it specifically in the policy because really it's an individual situation. You can ask the manager or whoever you've asked for permission. A lot of times if you're parked, especially if you need to put out a slide because you have to get to things, you have to do what you have to do. But if you park over like a curb, it goes right over it. So it's not in the way. And that's kind of the idea, is that you just don't want to be in the way. And you also don't want someone to hit your slide.
And also, don't put out more than you need to.
Right.
For our RV, I'm 6'2". If I don't put out the slide, my feet are in the closet. So it's nice to have the slide out for the bedroom, but we're not putting out the living room slides as well, because we're just there overnight. We come in the evening, patronize the store, and then leave in the morning.
Well, I think something you said that really resonated is talk to the person who you got permission from and explain it. And most of the time, I don't think that'll ever be a problem.
Exactly. We have... like you said, sometimes we do need to put ours out, but we don't always, but we have friends who really can't get to things without it, and they always ask, and they've never had anyone turn them down.
And we'll link to the description below to that Good Neighbor Policy. But for those who are unfamiliar with it or need a refresher, please look at that, because more and more of us are overnight camping on the way to different places, and that's good. And that takes us back here to what we're talking about. We're out to enjoy beautiful areas like we're in right now, and we do that kind of off the grid boondocking. And just because there's nobody else around doesn't mean that there aren't some rules of etiquette that we should follow. How did escapers come to this realization, and how did we end up coming up with this policy?
So as you know, we've seen the trend grow more and more, how much people boondock. And so we have escapees, and then we have our lifestyle group within it called Escapers, and a lot of the escapers boondock. It's a big thing. It's where most of our events take place, dry camping, and people gather beforehand. And even they had concerns. You know, they've been out on the land, and they brought to us concerns with how much trash they find, or other things they see, and we just felt like it was at a time where we should address it as a club and make sure that our members and other RVers all know the same kind of playbook and how to address things.
So what is in that playbook?
So I'm going to refer to my notes here.
It's a fairly new policy, although we do know that
And we should also point out that here we are, off the grid, talking about boondocking, and
oh yeah, I brought my iPad.
He's got his iPad. But that's the beauty of cell phone coverage.
Exactly. So the first one is respect the rules of the land. So a lot of these free public camping areas, they still have rules. You can't just roll out there and live there for indefinitely. So many of them have stay limits. It's very common that it's 14 days. They'll have limits for, you know, what you can do in that area, and it's just respect the rules. If you not following the rules, then you know you're already
right. You're already breaking the rules, and it can also endanger actually staying there later because they might close it.
Yeah, there are more and more places being shut down because people are just overstaying their limits and taking advantage of the situation.
So look for signage, or do a little extra work. Maybe stop at a ranger station.
Exactly.
And say, hey, how long can we stay? Well, okay, that's one of the first ones. What is the others?
Treasure terrain. This is our second kind of point here, and really you just want to make sure that you are camping on like durable surfaces. You don't want to crush any wildlife, any plants that are out there. You can usually tell where people have camped before, and so you just want to follow that.
Yeah, don't make new campsites. Don't dig up the dirt. Don't disturb the area. When you leave it, it should look like you were never there.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Then the next one is respect your neighbors. We do have a lot of people out there, and people go out to these areas a lot of times for peace and quiet and solitude. So, you know, you don't want to roll up right next to somebody. You don't want to have loud music playing that may bother people that are trying to be respectful.
You know, I think one of the first times, we're in our 9th year now of this, but our first time boondocking, we were near the Grand Canyon. And do you remember what happened? And we found this perfect boondocking spot.
Oh, I'll never forget that, because we were in the middle of nowhere. You know, this great spot, and we woke up in the morning and somebody was like 5 feet from us. And I thought,
5 feet.
Were they afraid? You know, why did you become our? I mean, you don't carry our neighbor, but you're a little close.
Right. Yeah, I do joke about this a lot. That there's this weird thing in the human condition where people are a little worried about boondocking. They're a little scared to be out on their own. And so when they go out, they park right next to someone else, but it's usually the other people that people are scared of. So it's kind of a weird thing that we seek solace. But just remember that they're out there for peace and quiet and space and solitude, and so give people their space and don't park in their view.
Right. And you want to take care when you're driving by. So even though you're not in a campground, maintain campground speed so you're not flying past somebody, maybe dusting them out in their campsite.
Yeah, and think about generator noise as well. That's always a big complaint, because again, people are trying to be peaceful and quiet, so don't run generators any louder than you need to. Please try to avoid contractor type generators if you can, and get an inverter type that's a lot quieter.
And probably follow the general rules, which is what I think it's 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., something like that. Yeah. So you're not waking people up and keeping them awake. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is we want to respect nature and wildlife, because we're in their home. You know, we're just visiting, and these animals, including insects and other little critters, they all live there.
We can swat mosquitoes.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I was getting a little worried there. Yeah.
No, but it's one of those things. So like if you have, and of course when they're in your home, you know, we don't want insects in your home. No one really does for the most part. But you know, there's ants outside. You can't just, you know, spray the whole wildlife with everything, because they're meant to be there, and there's a reason that they're there. Yeah. So. And
also, don't feed the animals. Mm-hmm. It's pretty common knowledge, we've all been taught, but it's tempting when you're out there and you see animals and you just want to entice them to your site, but leave them alone, because as they become dependent on humans, then they become a nuisance, and then oftentimes they end up having to be the ones.
We just had a story as we were recording this in Yellowstone. A woman jogger was attacked by a coyote that had been habituated by people feeding it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't think people realize is that when these animals lose their fear of people, they have to be euthanized for safety, and that's just cruel. Feeding animals is cruel. That's a great rule. I'm so glad you guys are.
Yeah, and that even translates to birds. A lot of us don't think about it, but it's always nice to have a hummingbird come to your window. But if you're out there for a week or two and you put out a feeder, and it depends on that feeder, and then you leave, you're causing a disruption in their system.
Yeah.
They might not have anywhere to feed.
Yeah. And then one more is think about burn bans and moving firewood. There's lots of invasive species in firewood, so lots of areas you can't move firewood from one area to the next. And we've all seen the trouble with all the wildfires and stuff. Be very conscious of any burn bans in the area, and also make sure your fires are completely out before you go to bed.
Just simple old Boy Scout.
Exactly. And that's what it boils down to. It's a lot of kind of common sense things that if you take the time and think about it, you would be doing this. But sometimes, if you start out, or you're just kind of going, you're just getting in there and you're just setting up, and it can be easy to just get in, forget that mindset sometimes.
And with that firewood issue, we should also tell people, it seems silly to have to remind them of this, but don't cut down trees.
Of course.
Right.
Yes.
Even dead trees, don't cut them down.
Yeah.
That's all. That's part of the nature and part of the plan. That eventually that'll fall and rot. But
exactly.
Don't intervene.
It's a big part of the ecosystem, and that's what we want to make sure we maintain that, so that it can thrive and that we can keep coming back and visiting.
Yeah. Well, let's end this by again telling everybody we'll put links to it, but. I've been using the term escapees, escapers. It's really the same club but different factions, and my listeners have heard me talk many times. If anybody's going to join a club, this is the club that we really recommend. So we give you the final floor in our interview to tell them about escapers and escapees and how they can be a part of that.
Oh, absolutely. So Escapees RV Club, we welcome all RVers, and we really are a total support network for all RVers. That is the tagline, but that is what we mean. So you can go to escapees.com and you can read about all the services that we have, every way that we try to support RVers on the road. We want to make life easier for you while you're on the road. And
then Escapers is a newer subset of the Escapees Club, and it's really a lifestyle group that's geared towards working age RVers. So it tends towards people who have different needs when it comes to working, staying connected, finding places that you can camp and get your work done. And then when the events that Escapers puts on tends not to have much going on during the day because we need to work, and then they tend to start in the evening and run into the night, where Escapees events are more general for all RVers.
Jennifer and I, we applaud you guys for first the good neighbor policy about overnight camping in parking lots, and now this common sense one on boondocking. We don't want any more lands shut down to boondocking.
No.
In fact, we want more opened up.
Right.
Exactly.
And following your good neighbor policy into the boondocking world is good sense. Thank you guys for making time to be on the podcast and on the video.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
What a great interview, and so many good points that we need to be reminded of.
Yeah, boondocking is awesome, but with it comes some responsibility. And we, again, will put links to the escapers and all of that information in the description below. Meantime, would you do us a favor and please like this video? While you're doing so, subscribe to the RV Lifestyle channel. Just click that subscribe button. And there's also a little bell button. If you click that bell icon, you will then be notified when we have new videos online. We're Mike and Jennifer Wendland. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Happy trails!